The bowl of hot soup struck Amara Cole across the shoulder before anyone at the table moved. She gasped as the liquid soaked into her dress and splashed across the polished floor. For one stunned second, the dining room went silent. Then Madame Seo placed the empty bowl down and said coldly, "Now perhaps you will remember your place." Amara slowly lifted her eyes. Around the table sat 12 members of the powerful Seo family, one of South Korea's wealthiest dynasties. None of them looked shocked. Some avoided her gaze. Others appeared entertained. Only Amara's hands trembled. She had endured whispers since marrying Seo Jin-woo 6 months earlier. She had endured servants refusing her instructions, relatives speaking Korean around her as though she could not understand, and newspaper headlines calling her an ambitious foreigner. But this was different. This was public humiliation. Jin-woo's older brother, Seo Min-ho, leaned back in his chair. "Mother warned you not to sit at this table." "I am Jin-woo's wife," Amara replied quietly. "This is my home too." Madame Seo laughed. "A marriage certificate does not make you one of us." Amara looked around the table again. "Does Jin-woo know you speak to me this way?" The amusement disappeared from several faces. Jin-woo had left Seoul 3 weeks earlier to negotiate the acquisition of a European technology company. Before leaving, he had placed Amara in charge of the household foundation and warned his family to treat her with respect. They had waited until his plane left the country before stripping her of everything. Her office had been locked. Her access cards had stopped working. Her name had been removed from the foundation website. Now they had summoned her to dinner, only to demand that she eat with the servants. Madame Seo's eyes narrowed. "My son does not need to know everything that happens while he is away." Amara stood slowly. Soup dripped from her sleeve, but her voice remained steady. "You are right. He does not need to know everything." Min-ho smirked. "At last, she understands. But he will know this." The smirk vanished. Amara removed her phone from her handbag and placed it on the table. The screen showed a recording timer. Madame Seo rose so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. "You recorded us?" "I started recording when your assistant dragged me from my office this afternoon." Soo-jin, Min-ho's wife, stared at the phone. "Delete it." "No." Min-ho slammed his palm against the table. "You are in our house." Amara faced him. "And you assaulted me in it." 2 security guards stepped forward, but Amara did not move. Madame Seo pointed toward the door. "Take her phone." Before they could reach her, a deep voice came from behind them. "Touch her, and both of you will be unemployed before you take another breath." Every person in the room froze. Jin-woo stood at the entrance. His dark suit was creased from travel, and fury burned in his eyes. Behind him stood his security chief and 3 members of the company's legal team. Amara's breath caught. Jin-woo. His gaze moved from her soaked dress to the overturned chair, then to the empty bowl in front of his mother. What happened? No one answered. Jin-woo walked directly to Amara and gently touched her shoulder. "Are you burned?" She shook her head. It was warm, not boiling. He removed his jacket and wrapped it around her. Then he turned toward his family. "Who did this?" Madame Seo recovered first. "Your wife has been disrespectful since you left." Jin-woo's jaw tightened. "That was not my question." She refused to obey the traditions of this family. "What traditions?" he demanded. "Assaulting women when their husbands travel?" Min-ho stood. "Do not speak to mother like that." Jin-woo looked at him. "You removed Amara's access to the foundation." Min-ho's face changed. Jin-woo continued, "You also transferred $48 million from 3 charitable accounts into companies controlled by your wife's relatives." Soo-jin went pale. Madame Seo stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "I returned early because our auditors discovered the transfers." Amara looked at Jin-woo in surprise. Min-ho forced a laugh. This is absurd. One of the lawyers stepped forward and placed a folder on the table. It is not absurd, Mr. Seo. Every transaction is documented. Jin-woo turned to Amara. They thought removing your access would stop you from seeing what they were doing. Madam Seo looked sharply at her. She discovered it? Amara said nothing. Jin-woo's expression hardened. My wife discovered the missing money 2 weeks ago. She informed the auditors before any of you realized she was investigating. Min-ho stared at her, as though seeing her for the first time. You. Amara calmly removed Jin-woo's jacket from her shoulders and folded it over her arm. Yes, me. Soo-jin shook her head. You are only a human rights lawyer. Amara looked directly at her. That is what you chose to believe. Madam Seo's voice became uncertain. What does that mean? Jin-woo answered. Before Amara became a lawyer, she worked as a forensic financial investigator for the African Development Integrity Commission. She helped trace stolen government funds across 17 countries. The room fell silent. She also owns 12% of Seo Global, Jin-woo continued. Min-ho's mouth opened. That is impossible. It is not, Amara said. I inherited the shares from my late godfather, Daniel Cole. Madam Seo gripped the table. Daniel Cole had been the international investor who saved Seo Global from collapse 15 years earlier. His shares carried special voting rights that could decide who controlled the company. And now those shares belonged to the woman they had just humiliated. Jin-woo looked around the room. You believed Amara was powerless because she remained quiet. He took her hand. But tomorrow morning, the board will vote on whether Min-ho should remain company president. Min-ho's face drained of color. Jin-woo's voice dropped. And Amara holds the deciding vote. If you believe silence is sometimes mistaken for weakness, like this video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what you would do if you were standing in Amara's place. Madam Seo stepped toward her. Amara, we should discuss this privately. Amara met her gaze. You had 6 months to speak to me privately. She glanced at the soup staining her dress. Now the entire board will hear what you had to say. By 9 the next morning, every major shareholder of Seo Global had gathered inside the 32nd floor boardroom. The tension was so thick that nobody touched the coffee placed before them. At the head of the table sat Chairman Seo, Jin-woo's father, a man whose illness had kept him away from company affairs for nearly a year. On his right sat Min-ho, pale but defiant. On his left sat Jin-woo, calm and unreadable. Amara entered last. She wore a simple navy suit, her hair pulled back, and no expression on her face. Yet every conversation stopped the moment she stepped through the door. Min-ho's supporters whispered among themselves. Madam Seo sat behind him with Soo-jin, both dressed as though appearance could hide panic. Chairman Seo raised his hand. This meeting will come to order. Min-ho stood immediately. Father, before this begins, I must object to Amara's participation. She is emotionally involved and clearly being manipulated by Jin-woo. Amara took her seat. Manipulated into examining financial records? She asked. Min-ho ignored her. She is angry about a private family disagreement. She cannot be trusted to vote objectively. Chairman Seo turned to Amara. Do you wish to respond? Yes. She placed a thick folder on the table. This is not about what happened at dinner. What happened at dinner only proved how comfortable they had become believing I could be silenced. Soo-jin leaned forward. That recording was illegal. One of the company lawyers answered, South Korean law permits a participant in a conversation to record it. Soo-jin fell silent. Amara opened the folder. $48 million was transferred from 3 charitable accounts. Min-ho approved every transfer. Min-ho laughed bitterly. Those funds were investments. In companies owned by Soo-jin's brother, cousin, and former university roommate. They were legitimate companies. Amara slid several photographs across the table. The first showed an abandoned warehouse. The second showed an empty office. The third showed a construction site where no work had been done for 8 months. Legitimate companies usually have employees, Amara said. These have none. The directors began murmuring. Minho pointed at her. You investigated my family without authorization. I investigated missing company funds. You had no right. Amara looked toward Chairman Seo. As a shareholder with special voting authority, I had every right. Madam Seo stood. This has gone far enough. Amara is taking revenge because she was corrected in our home. Jinwoo's eyes flashed. You poured soup on her. I was teaching her respect. No, Amara said quietly. You were teaching everyone else that humiliating me carried no consequences. Madam Seo's face tightened. Amara continued. But this meeting is not about her. It is about what Minho has done. She pressed a button on the conference table. The screen behind her lit up, displaying a series of bank transfers. The directors leaned closer. The money left Seo Global's foundation accounts, Amara explained, passed through shell companies in Singapore and Dubai, then returned to Korea through an investment fund. Minho folded his arms. You cannot prove I controlled that fund. Amara changed the image. A signed authorization form appeared. Minho stopped breathing. You signed the documents yourself, she said. Soo-jin turned toward her husband. You told me my brother handled everything. Be quiet. No, Soo-jin snapped. You said there would be no trail. The room erupted. Minho spun toward her. I said be quiet. Chairman Seo struck the table with his cane. Enough. Silence returned. He looked at his eldest son. Did you steal from this company? Minho's voice shook. I protected it. By taking charitable funds? The company needed political influence. Those accounts allowed us to move money without attracting attention. Jinwoo rose slowly. That money was meant for hospitals, schools, and disaster victims. Minho faced him. You always believed business could be clean. It cannot. Our competitors bribe officials, manipulate markets, and destroy anyone who stands in their way. And that makes theft acceptable? It makes survival possible. Amara watched Minho carefully. There was fear beneath his anger. Not guilt. Fear. Who were you paying? She asked. Minho looked at her. What? You said the money bought political influence. Who received it? He hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. There was no politician, Amara said. Minho's face hardened. She changed the image again. This time, a photograph of a middle-aged man appeared on the screen. Several directors reacted immediately. Chairman Seo gripped his cane. Park Dae-sung. Jinwoo stared at Minho. You transferred money to our greatest competitor? Minho's breathing quickened. He offered protection. Protection from what? Chairman Seo demanded. Minho said nothing. Amara opened another file. 6 months ago, Park Dae-sung began quietly purchasing Seo Global debt through intermediaries. If the company's share price falls below a specific level, he can force repayment and seize several major assets. The directors stared at one another in shock. Jinwoo turned to his brother. You helped him. Minho slammed both hands on the table. I had no choice. You always had a choice. No, I did not. Minho shouted. Park had evidence that could destroy this family. Madam Seo went still. Chairman Seo's voice became low. What evidence? Minho looked toward his mother. The entire board followed his gaze. Madam Seo's face slowly lost its color. Amara noticed it. So did Jinwoo. Mother, he asked. She stepped backward. This is not the place. Chairman Seo rose with difficulty. What did Park discover? Madam Seo shook her head. Nothing that concerns the company. Min-ho laughed without humor. It concerns everything. Do not say another word, she warned. But Min-ho was already breaking. For 24 years, everyone believed father built Seo Global alone. Chairman Seo stared at him. Min-ho pointed toward Amara. Her godfather did more than save the company. Amara's pulse quickened. What are you saying? Min-ho swallowed. Daniel Cole owned far more than 12%. The room went completely silent. Amara stood. How much? Madam Seo whispered. Min-ho, stop. He looked at Amara with desperate eyes. Enough to control Seo Global. Amara felt the floor shift beneath her. That is impossible. No, Min-ho said. The documents were altered after his death. Jin-woo turned slowly toward his mother. You stole her inheritance? Madam Seo's lips trembled. I protected this family. Amara's voice broke for the first time. You knew who I was from the moment Jin-woo introduced me. Madam Seo did not answer. You did not hate me because I was foreign, Amara continued, tears burning her eyes. You hated me because you were afraid I would discover the truth. Chairman Seo looked as though he had aged 10 years in a single minute. Where are the original documents? Min-ho glanced toward Soo-jin. She lowered her eyes. Amara followed the movement. You have them, she said. Soo-jin began shaking her head. No. Min-ho stared at his wife. What did you do? Soo-jin pushed back her chair. You promised that nobody would be hurt. Where are the documents? He demanded. Before she could answer, every light in the boardroom went out. The screen disappeared. The electronic doors locked. Then the fire alarm began screaming. Jin-woo grabbed Amara's arm. Stay beside me. Smoke started pouring from the ventilation system. Someone shouted that the records room was on fire. Amara turned toward the darkened corridor beyond the glass wall. A shadow was moving toward the emergency staircase. Soo-jin was gone. And she was carrying Amara's folder. Stop her! Jin-woo shouted. The security chief was already moving. 2 guards rushed toward the emergency exit, but the electronic locks refused to respond. The system has been hacked, one of them yelled. Smoke continued filling the boardroom. Several directors began coughing while others tried calling emergency services. Amara grabbed a wet cloth from the refreshment table and covered her mouth. She isn't trying to escape, she said. She's trying to destroy the evidence. Jin-woo immediately understood. The archive vault. He turned to his security chief. Use the manual override. Forget the elevators. Within seconds, the emergency doors were forced open. Jin-woo and Amara sprinted toward the records department with 3 guards close behind. As they rounded the corridor, they saw Soo-jin struggling to unlock the archive room while clutching the folder against her chest. It's over, Soo-jin. Amara called. Soo-jin spun around, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. Then explain. I never wanted any of this. Jin-woo stepped forward. Give Amara the documents. Soo-jin shook her head desperately. If I do, Park Dae-sung will kill my entire family. Amara slowed her pace. Park threatened you. He threatened everyone. He said if the truth came out, none of us would survive. Before anyone could respond, a loud explosion echoed from the underground parking garage. The entire building trembled. Security radios erupted with frantic voices. Unauthorized vehicles. Multiple armed men entering the lobby. They're heading upstairs. Jin-woo's expression became ice cold. Park isn't waiting anymore. He looked at Amara. This was never just about the company. The security chief handed Jinwoo a compact communication device. Our response team is 3 minutes away. We don't have 3 minutes. Amara looked at Sujin. Help us, and we can protect your family. Sujin stared at the folder in her hands. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then she slowly handed it to Amara. I should have told the truth months ago. Before Amara could answer, several gunshots echoed from the far end of the corridor. Everyone dropped behind the marble columns. The attackers were advancing. Jinwoo pulled Amara behind him. You stay with me. You're not facing this alone, she replied firmly. The security team engaged the attackers while ushering the board members toward a secure exit. Minutes later, police sirens surrounded the headquarters. The armed men realized they had lost the element of surprise and fled before reinforcements reached the upper floors. An hour later, the building was secured. Inside a protected conference room, Amara finally opened the recovered folder. The room became completely silent. Every original ownership certificate was inside. Chairman Seo adjusted his glasses with trembling hands. These are Daniel Cole's original agreements. The company's chief legal officer carefully reviewed each page. After nearly 20 minutes, he looked up. The documents are authentic. Madame Seo closed her eyes. So, it is true. The lawyer nodded. Daniel Cole owned controlling shares of Seo Global. Upon his death, those shares legally transferred to his goddaughter, Amara Cole. Several directors stood in shock. One slowly whispered, she has always been the rightful majority owner. Amara stared at the documents without speaking. She had spent months believing she was merely defending her husband's company. Instead, she had unknowingly been defending her own inheritance. Chairman Seo slowly walked toward her. For the first time since she had entered the family, he bowed deeply. Amara, I failed you. She looked at the elderly man. You didn't know. No. But I should have. He turned toward the directors. I formally recognize Amara Cole as the lawful majority shareholder of Seo Global. One by one, the directors rose to their feet. Not out of fear. Out of respect. Madame Seo remained seated. Tears rolled silently down her face. I judged you before I knew you, she whispered. I believed wealth belonged only to bloodlines. Amara looked at the woman who had humiliated her. The greatest wealth isn't money. Madame Seo lowered her head. It is character. The older woman finally broke. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, Amara answered honestly. You don't. The room fell silent. Then Amara continued. But forgiveness isn't earned. It's given when someone chooses to stop carrying bitterness. Madame Seo began crying openly. I am sorry. For the soup. For every insult. For every lie. For believing your skin determined your worth. Amara walked toward her. You cannot erase what happened. I know. But you can decide who you become after today. Madame Seo nodded through her tears. I will spend the rest of my life trying. A week later, Seo Global held an emergency shareholders meeting. Minho officially resigned and later accepted responsibility for the financial crimes he had committed. Sujin fully cooperated with investigators, helping authorities dismantle Park Dae-sung's corruption network. Several executives involved in the conspiracy were removed from their positions. The billions recovered from the stolen charitable funds were returned to hospitals, scholarship programs, and humanitarian projects across Asia and Africa. The media expected Amara to become the company's new CEO. Instead, she surprised everyone. She appointed Jinwoo as CEO. I never wanted power, she told the board. I wanted justice. She accepted the position of executive chair, focusing on ethics, transparency, and the company's global charitable foundation. Within 2 years, Seo Global became internationally recognized not only for its profits but also for its integrity. Employees proudly said it had become one of the fairest companies in the world. One quiet evening, Jin-woo stood beside Amara on the balcony of their home overlooking Seoul. "I still regret leaving for that business trip," he admitted. She smiled softly. "If you hadn't gone, the truth might never have come out." He laughed. "So my family accidentally exposed themselves. They underestimated the quiet woman." Jin-woo gently took her hand. "They'll never make that mistake again." She leaned against him. "No, they won't." If this story reminded you that dignity is more powerful than pride, and that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Also, tell us in the comments, if you were in Amara's position, would you have forgiven the family, or walked away forever? Your answer might inspire someone else. Until the next story, remember that true greatness is revealed not by how people treat you when you have nothing, but by how they respond after discovering who you really are.